Hello! I couldn't imagine that so many people would be interested in cheap Ukrainian village houses. I received several questions from you, and I had two extensive consultations with an American and a British man who want to invest in 2 or 3 village houses in Ukraine. So in this video I will answer most asked questions for buying a village house in Ukraine for a foreigner. But before we begin, please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. Please ask any questions in comments to this video, and those of you who are really interested in investing money in Ukrainian village houses or in apartments, feel free to email me anytime at my email address, and I will be glad to help you individually. Before buying any property in Ukraine, if it is an apartment or a house, you have to get a Ukrainian tax ID. It is not difficult, you just have to make a translation of your passport, and with this official translation and a copy of your passport, you go to any tax office in Ukraine, fill in a small form and ask for a tax ID. You can do it all by yourself, or you can pay $1 to $150 and it will be done on your behalf very fast and very easy. A very important note here. Many foreigners mistakenly think that if they buy an apartment or a house in Ukraine, they will be able to get a long-term visa or even a residence permit in Ukraine. No, you will not be able to get a residence permit nor a long-term visa if you buy an apartment or any house in Ukraine. It doesn't work like that. I have a detailed video about residence permits in Ukraine, so please watch that video for more information. But in short, buying any residential property in Ukraine does not grant you a residence permit or a long-term visa. Watch previously recorded video if you need more information, but in my opinion, after the war is over, I think those residence permits for foreigners will be simplified, because Ukraine will need additional investments, and I think it will be much easier to get a residence permit, or maybe Ukraine will let Americans, Canadians, British people and European citizens come into Ukraine and stay here for a year or maybe even longer. But again, it's my opinion, we just have to wait and see what will happen after the war is over. Question about taxes is the most asked question. So what are taxes for a foreign man to buy a house or an apartment in Ukraine? And you should know that tax law of Ukraine does not differ between foreigner and a Ukrainian citizen. There is only difference between resident and non-resident. Of course, all Ukrainian citizens are considered to be residents, no matter where they live, whether they live in Ukraine or whether they live somewhere in Europe for a very long period of time. They are considered to be residents of Ukraine if they have a Ukrainian passport. And if a foreigner gets a residence permit in Ukraine, then all tax laws apply to him as to a Ukrainian citizen. To buy any residential apartment or a village house, which may be residential or non-residential, a resident and non-resident pays only 1% tax to a pension fund, and that's it. You can buy any number of apartments, any number of houses, village houses, and you pay for each only 1%, which is a tax to a pension fund of Ukraine. Seller also pays 1%, but more about selling I will talk in another video. Property registration fees. No matter if you buy an apartment or a village house, there will be a notary fee of about $100 to $200 or euros. And this sum has to be paid by buyer. Second, valuation of property is needed by a valuation expert. And for valuation, either buyer pays or you split this price with the seller 50-50. But if we are talking about buying a village house, I think you will have to pay for the valuation of this property. And this will cost about $100 to $200 or euros. Overall, registration fees will be about like $300 to $400. Now I want to talk about other fees that you may encounter. If you buy an apartment, and especially an expensive apartment, you will want to check to whom this property belongs and also who owned this property in the past. Watch my other videos, links will be in the description to this video. But if you buy a cheap village house, it is not need to check to whom this house belonged, to whom it belongs now. it will just be a waste of money. Just you may want to check maybe the real documents before making a down payment, because some documents may be fake, and once you make a down payment, you will most probably not see that money ever again. So most probably you would ask like a detective agency or maybe a notary to check documents before making the down payment, and that would cost about 100 to 200 US dollars. Additionally, before buying any property, you have to see the certificates from gas company, from water supply company, and from electricity supply company that this particular house has no debts. Usually seller must collect these papers, these certificates. But if we're talking about buying a cheap village house, seller may disagree, and then you will have to pay additionally maybe $100 to collect all those certificates on behalf of the seller. If there are debts, you simply subtract sum of debts from the price of a house. But some people forget about such checks, and then they may be surprised, as debts for gas and electricity may be bigger than the price of the house itself. And notary doesn't check these debts when you sign the buying agreement, so you have to do it yourself. How to correctly choose a village house in Ukraine. I talked about it in my previous videos in very great detail, so watch those videos, links also will be in the description. But in short, there are no real estate agents who sell village houses, and because of such low price, realtors will not be offering them, and it means that you have to look for the house yourself. And the question you will ask here, how do Ukrainians look for such houses if they want to buy a house in the village? And that's a very good question. There is no exact answer for that question, but I would tell you what I would do if I wanted to buy a house in Ukrainian village. First, I would look in which villages I would want to buy a house, and then I would collect some information about those villages where I want to live. What kind of shops, post office, other deliveries like Nova Poshta, kindergarten, school, bus routes, connection to centralized gas, centralized water, mobile coverage, internet, and so on. Once I know which villages meet most of my criteria, I would drive to 2, 3, 4 or 5 villages and will talk to people in those villages about their problems and pros and cons of those villages. Usually in villages people know which houses are for sale and have the owner's contacts. In such way you can find out which houses are for sale, and if you like the house from the outside, you can ask for a phone number from the neighbor and can contact the owner to come and see the inside of the house and maybe the garden. If someone lives in that house which is for sale, of course you can come and see it straight away. But usually people do not live in homes that are for sale in villages. So it is a quest to buy a house in Ukrainian village and takes some time. How to make it affordable if 1 or 2 men would want to buy a village house, I'd have no idea. If, for example, there will be 5 or better 10 people who would want to buy a village house in Ukraine, then it is possible to assign somebody and to agree in which area would you want to buy those village houses. Then that somebody may go to those villages, collect all data, collect all the analytics, present all those data to you, then collect telephone numbers of those owners, drive there for the 2nd, 3rd, 4th time, and take videos of those houses, of the inside of houses, of gardens, and then show it all to you. And of course we will have to write descriptions to those videos and to send you all that analytics. Of course something will have to be paid for all this research, analysis, finding houses, driving to those villages, taking videos, and so on and so on. If there will be people who want to invest in Ukrainian village houses, please drop me email and we can talk it over with you if there will be like 5 or 7 or maybe even 10 people. I already correspond with 2 men who want to buy a village house in Ukraine. So we need like 5 more, and then we can make it all rolling. So if any one of you will be really interested in investing money in village houses in Ukraine, please drop me email. Also, feel free to ask questions in comments to this video. I will be glad to answer them. If you need my personal assistance, help or advice, feel free to email me at my email address, and I always glad to help those people who really need help. In the next video, I will talk about selling property and village houses in Ukraine, because buying is very easy and selling is a little bit more difficult procedure in terms of taxes and in terms of tax optimization. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so, and in the meantime, I wish you all good luck, success, happiness, joy, tranquility, and of course, stay healthy and wealthy.